Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. We've got quite a treat in store tonight. My name is Abba Kwao. I am the president and founder of TAAPR. I am located in Washington, D.C. And not too long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, we had part one of our chat with our friend Andre Leon Talley, and we're back tonight for part two. A couple quick housekeeping things before we get started. We did receive many of your questions that you submitted in advance, and we'll try to ask as many of them tonight as possible. If you'd like to engage with us on social, please feel free to post and share using @TAA_PR and @AndreLeonTalley on Instagram. And Andre on Twitter is @officialALT. So please engage with us and share. And tonight is going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys have come with a little something to sip. We're going to be here for a while, and we're all friends. And it's so wonderful to see people. I see folks in here from London and Paris and New York and Dallas. And so use that Q&A button to ask questions, but in that chat, get to know each other. We're going to make this as warm and fuzzy and intimate as we can. So without further ado, I would love to bring in a friend who really needs no introduction.
Am I here?
Yeah. Well, yes, there you are.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
How are you doing today?
Great, happy to be with you again.
Yes, we meet again, right? So Andre, I know that you need no introduction. However, I'm going to take the liberty because we're here tonight and we're getting up to nearly 1,300 of our friends.
Amazing.
Near and far. I see people
Congratulations.
in here. I was saying a moment ago, they're in here from London, from Paris, from
beautiful.
Nigeria, from Ghana, and all over the United States. And we're here tonight to discuss the trenches. Okay? Guys, we went for 2 hours and 22 minutes when you pointed it out to me that, listen, Abba, 2 hours and 22 minutes. But the people have spoken, and we want more, and we want more, and we want more, Andre. So I'm just going to let you guys know, a man, he needs no introduction, but I'm going to read this anyway. Andre Leon Talley was the indomitable creative director at Vogue during the magazine's rising dominance as the world's fashion Bible. Over the past 5 decades, his byline has also appeared in Vanity Fair, HG, Interview, Women's Wear Daily. He has published several illustrated works, including The Little Black Dress, ALT 365, and Oscar de la Renta, His Legendary World of Style. Andre is also the subject of the documentary, The Gospel According to Andre, which I watched 3 times. I will let you know that. He received his MA in French Studies from Brown University and served on the board of trustees for the Savannah College of Art and Design for 20 years. Welcome, Andre.
Well. My credits sound good.
Yes, so welcome
my
to all of our
credentials sound
friends.
good.
Yes, Andre. So what are you wearing today?
I am wearing our friend Patience from Nigeria, from Lagos. I'm wearing a beautiful broderie anglaise agbada that she made for me especially.
Beautiful.
And I decided to wear this in honor of our dear friend Patience.
Wonderful.
And what are you wearing? Is that Patience?
I am not. Tonight I'm wearing Ophelia Crossland, a Ghanaian designer who made this for me. So another tap stand for you, Andre.
Well, listen, you did wear Patience last time, so I decided to wear Patience this time.
I did. So we're swapping places.
It's swapping places, yes.
So Andre, I'm going to tell you this. You know, we didn't get enough of you 2 hours plus last time. So we're going to do this again and have a lot of fun.
Good.
Those of you joining tonight, I think there are about 25% of the people who were with us last time who are back tonight. And another 75% of people. So we're going to be able to dig into all of those things and then some tonight, guys. So last time we had Tony Goodman join us, Wendy Goodman join us, your good friend Beth Ann Hardison, and of course Naomi Campbell joined us as well. So we're in for some fun, and we've got some friends tonight as well.
Good.
So buckle up, good people. So first of all, Andre, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I am very, very well. I am very well. I'm strong.
Yeah.
I'm very mindful of the pandemic of coronavirus. I wake up every morning at around 6 o'clock. I turn on Morning Joe, and then I flip to CNN to get the data and the science. And then I go out on my porch, and that porch has been a sanctuary for me this summer. And I just put my head in books. I'm just burying my head in books. And I'm so grateful that I still find books can be my best friends.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading everything I can possibly get my hands on by James Baldwin. I have a personal librarian who researches books, and yes, his name is Garrett Rittenberg, and he is a very brilliant human being, a painter as well, and a writer, an author, and he sends me books, and he's just sent me the most extraordinary books on James Baldwin. I'd read them maybe 40, 50 years ago, but they're so vital to me today because of what we're going through with Black Lives Matter. So it keeps me focused. So I'm reading the great, great biography on Frederick Douglass, the Pulitzer Prize winning biography by David Blight. I'm also reading, I'm waiting to get the books that I want to read of Virginia Woolf. So every day, if I can sit on my porch and read for 2 hours, it helps me to get through this crisis.
That's wonderful.
Thank
so
you.
You told us last time about your wonderful porch. I remember you told Beth Ann Hardison to come on up and see you.
Yeah, she
on the porch like the olden days. Did that happen?
It didn't happen, but she's scheduled for the fall because she had to go back upstate to her house in the country. And she had come down to New York for something. But we planned it. I'm still receiving my porch. I just had guests last night.
Okay.
Alexandra Couture and her children, Digby and Roberta. And I had my great friend, Teo Speakla from Fremeniche. So my porch is still my open living room for this summer. Oh,
wow. Well, I wish I were a fly on that porch or on the wall.
Yeah, iced tea is served. The books are there in baskets. The books, I'm stepping over books. Oh, wow. I'm spilling over books. I just can't say how extraordinary it is to read the beautiful writings of James Baldwin. I'm reading a thing he wrote, a letter to his brother, his younger brother. He wrote this letter on the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, wow. And within those four pages, it's just, James Baldwin was so eloquent. He was so, no wonder he started writing when he was 21. Wow. And, he used to shine shoes. He was a shoe shiner to help his family survive. Amazing. And then in 48, he left to go to Paris, and then the world opened up for him. He went to Paris with $40 in his pocket. I
think you can relate to some of that.
Yes, I can.
More than $40 by the time you got to
Well, I had 13 pieces of unmatched luggage. 13 pieces.
13
of unmatched luggage. That soon changed with my first paycheck, and I started getting matched and autographed Louis Vuitton, which I still have.
Well, we're going to get in there in just a minute and dig into all of that. But I'm going to take a couple steps back, Andre. You know what, Andre? This book is absolutely incredible. I've had so much fun with it, and a lot of people have sent me notes, and they have sent on our Instagram and have sent notes to us as they RSVP'd about how fantastic the book has been. What a wonderful escape it has been, honestly, at a time like this. So thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it was really brave for you to share
very much. Thank you.
The way that you did. So thank you so much for that.
I'm very grateful to everyone.
So you know what, Andre? Much tea has been spilled in this book. And many opinion pieces and reviews have been written. I've been reading them all. I know that you have read them as well. So let's get into it, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
First of all, before I get into it, I need to mention the incredible feat that this book has reached number 6 on the New York Times best-selling list within the first week of publication.
Thank you.
The New York Times actually called it the juiciest fashion memoir of the year. And I think all of us can agree that that is indeed the case, right? That is indeed the case.
Hello.
Hey, Andre.
Oh, Sherry!
There's a special
someone here.
Goodness.
I haven't seen you since February, and there you are. You look so beautiful.
I know. I wore a little makeup.
You've lost weight. You didn't never were fat, but you've lost weight.
Uh-oh.
You went off, Diane.
We will freeze for a moment. But guys, that is the incomparable Diane von Furstenberg, one of Andre's longest, oldest friends in fashion. Hi, Diane. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to see you. Happy to see you. This is a big surprise for you, Andre.
Yes.
So I know she's freezing up a little bit, but she's there with some other friends, and we want to chat with you a little bit tonight.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
I hope she unfreezes.
There she is.
No, don't worry. I always.
Hi, Anne. Oh, look, there you are with the portrait.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Very well.
Okay,
you look as young as ever. Diane, what have you done? You look as young as ever. I haven't seen you. What have you done?
I haven't done anything. Are you kidding?
You look like that photograph of us in 1979.
Hi, darling. You look good too. Are you home?
I'm at home.
Are you home?
Yes. Yes.
I have the same. Yeah. All right. So what are we gonna do here?
Diane, where are you?
Gonna have
You guys seem to be a fabulous library. Where are you guys?
We are in Connecticut, in my house, which is a house that Andre knows well, because he lived there for a few months, years ago, and
So, Diane.
So how many people are attending? Yes.
So we're expecting close to 1,300 guests.
1,300.
Oh my God!
They're all still trying to get in.
Andre, cheers to you.
Thank you, both of you. Love you. I love you, DVF. 1,300. I love the glasses.
They're all fighting to still get in here on the back end, but cheers to you. So Andre, I know that Diane is one of your oldest friends, longest friends. You guys have a wonderful relationship. You speak of her so beautifully in your book.
Yes.
Take us back to when you two met, and I believe it was in the 70s, in the days of working with Andy Warhol.
No, well, the first actual meeting I ever had with Diane was when I was covering a party for Women's Wear Daily, and I stood outside of her Park Avenue apartment.
I think it was interview.
Yes, it was interview. It was interview. Yeah.
It was interview.
And those were Warhol portraits there.
And I had a party on Park Avenue, and I was living on the 3rd floor. And for some reason, I went downstairs, and there was this long, very, very, very tall, very skinny guy. And he had a little satin cape and a little camera, and he was taking pictures of the people coming.
And I just realized, I think I met Diane with Andre, because Andre, you came to the La Croix show.
Yes. And you were the star. You were one of the great stars of La Croix.
And that's, I think, the first time we met also.
And you were one of the great stars of the La Croix collection, the couture.
Yes.
And I was saying to him the other day how I miss Christian.
Yeah.
Christian. Diane, you look as glamorous as ever. Has the pandemic been good to you? My God. What have you done? Those facials have been good for you.
Yeah. I think, if people who are lucky to have a garden, and people who are lucky to have a roof, took a lot of, it was kind of a time to think and reflect about a lot of things.
Yes.
So, but we cannot forget about the people who have no home and the people who have no garden. And I have somebody else to introduce you to. Wait, come here. Somebody else is here for you.
Hi, my darling.
Oh, Diane. Hi there. Oh.
You look so elegant.
But my God, you all look so great. The air, the nature has done wonders for you all.
Yeah.
It's a sanctuary. And I love you. You all look just the way you did when we took that picture, that great picture of you recently. you found when you're backstage, you're combing your hair, you're getting ready for a show, and Olivier's in the background with Sarah Cap. That was so
that was a great.
Listen,
that was,
Olivier has been in my background
forever.
over 50
Forever.
years. Over
We
50
are
years.
here. We are all still here, and we look great.
Exactly.
And you look
fabulous.
amazing.
You look great.
We look great. Olivier look great, and Diane, you look great, and Anne, you look great. My goodness. It's like a family reunion. And look at the Warhols back there. The Warhols. Is this your garage? Is this where you made your garage into a library?
No, this is the studio. Remember the studio?
Where you slept? That's one of the rooms. I know where the room is now. Yes.
You know, it's in
Yes.
the barn. It's not
Yes,
in the
barn.
main house.
It's in the barn.
Not where you slept.
Yes.
It's the studio.
And you moved your portraits there. That's incredible.
Yeah. So we are not going to
So-
stay very long, but should we? Do you want me to do anything? Do you want me to do any
Yes,
performance?
I wanted to ask you a couple questions if you don't mind. And you all
Okay.
are friends and have all known each other for so long.
Oh, it looks so great.
You know,
Oh my God.
And you met during the Andy Warhol days and the interview days. We all want to hear about what New York was like in those days, at interview, in those Studio 54 days that, Andre, you describe in your book, and at the time that you and Diane and team were getting to know each other. So tell us about that life, Diane. I'm dying to know.
On en a que pour quelques minutes. Okay, well, to be young in the 70s was a lot of fun. We were all very young. New York City was very dangerous. It was dangerous. It was very cheap. You could actually go to the supermarket and for $50 you could buy a huge dinner for 50 people. And we were all very, very young. And because the city was very dangerous and very cheap, there were a lot of creative people. There was Holston, there was Stephen Burroughs, there was Andy Warhol, and it was a lot of fun. We thought that there was a lot of women's liberation, sex liberation. So we all thought that we invented freedom, which of course we did not. And that was that. And then there was Andre. And Andre, I have to say, was my first Black friend. But we became very, very close over the years. First, Andre had a wonderful journey. He worked for Diana Vreeland, then he worked for Interview, then he worked for Women's Wear Daily. And then they sent him to be the correspondent for Women's Wear Daily in Paris, which was a big deal for such a young man and a Black man. And everyone loved Andre in Paris. I mean, all the designers, Saint Laurent, Givenchy, and everybody was crazy about Andre. Yeah. And Andre was super elegant. And of course, there's the famous story that he went, there's a very famous restaurant called Maxime's. And in those days, in Maxime's, on Friday night, you were supposed to wear black tie. And Andre came wearing a black bow tie, but he was wearing a very elegant cashmere robe. And that was a big, big scandal, but he looked so elegant. He looked so wonderful. And then I used to come and visit Paris and stay at the Plaza Athénée. I was at the beginning of my success. I was a very young woman. And Andre and we would walk the hallway or we would have tea. And I used to say to Andre, pretend you are an African king. And so we would pretend that he was an African king, which of course he is.
He is.
And then he went on his life and his career, and I went on in mine, and of course the most beautiful. I mean, Andre made me do all kinds of things. He was very involved in SCAD University. He brought me to SCAD. He brought me to... Faites un peu moins de bruit, une seconde. J'ai presque fini. And so I went to what is it called? Savannah, and we did that. But the most wonderful, and of course, Andre, while he was moving out of the city and before he bought his house, lived with me for months. And so we got very close there too. But the most wonderful souvenir we ever had is when Obama was inaugurated. And I was invited. Nancy Pelosi invited me. It was a great honor. She asked me to introduce her to the Democratic lunch that she was giving as the Speaker of the House. And so we had great seats. I mean, she gave us great seats for the inauguration. We were right on the terrace of the Congress. And of course, Andre being my first Black friend, I, of course, invited him to come with me. And we had a very, very emotional 4 days in Washington, D.C. for the election of the first Black president in America. It was a moment that I will never forget. Washington, D.C. was crowded. There were 4 million people in the streets. Everybody was so happy. It was so peaceful. It was just an incredible thing. Unfortunately, or whatever, it was January and it was really, really, really cold. I was wearing a ski suit and a fur coat over, and Andre was wearing fur, and at the time we still could wear fur, which obviously we couldn't do today anymore. And we were living this extraordinary moment. And I turned around and I said to Andre, call your mother. And Andre, of course, loved his mother, but they had a very, tumultuous, passionate relationship. And usually would say, leave me alone, leave me alone. And instead he picked his phone and he's called his mother. And that was, for me, a huge achievement that I made him do that. So I am here to tell everybody that Andre is a wonderful person. He is a very, very dear friend of mine. He is somebody who understands fashion and loves fashion, but also reading his book and seeing the documentary that came out, I understood another side of Andre that he never talked about. He never talked about, he never talked about his youth as a Black man and in the South. And so that was quite wonderful to hear about that. And I am glad that his book is a big success. I know that people like to pick it and think that he wanted to be cruel or mean to anyone. And this is absolutely not true, because he has a great love and respect for Anna Wintour. He has a lot of respect and love for the people at Vogue and the people he works with. So I will always defend him. And, people like to take, the juicy little part and blow it up. But this is not what this book is about. This book is about the incredible journey of a young man, Black man from the South, whose grandmother raised as a great human being, taught him dignity, taught him, all of those things. And he was dreaming of Vogue magazine, and he was dreaming of the fashion. And he managed to come to New York and to meet all those people. And not only to New York, he crossed the ocean. He went to Paris. He was friends with Karl Lagerfeld and Yves Saint Laurent and all these people that he dreamed about, that he never, ever thought he would know. So Andre is a wonderful symbol of making a dream come true. And I'm very honored to be his friend. And I drink to him now and ever.
Oh, that
love you, Diane. I love you, Diane.
Oh,
and I drink to you.
This
and
is the type of friend,
people.
the friend that you need for all of the ages.
And I love Diane. Let me speak, please. Diane is an extraordinary woman. She's an extraordinary friend. All her dreams came true. And as she says, to quote her, I became the woman I wanted to become. She's an extraordinary woman, an extraordinary mother to her children, and grandmother now. But look how beautiful she is. And this was a perfect opening because she is one of my oldest friends. And when I'm very tense sometimes, when I remember the opening of the documentary, The Gospel According to Andre, it was a very crowded room. It was organized by friends of the Met, the Vogue, and Diane was in the front row. And she could see how tense I was. And she just looked at me and she said, smile. To break the nervousness, to break it. She's been there for me in so many beautiful moments of my life. And Diane, I give full credit to her for having me call my mother that day on the steps of the Capitol. She turned to me, freezing cold, and she said, call your mother right now. And I did, because she'd been taking that battle single-handedly for years. And I listened to her because she gave me very good advice.
And because I am a mother.
Yes. And then I did call my mother, and I reconciled with my mother before she died. So to that, I owe Diane von Furstenberg. But let me say, Diane is also a great designer. She's wearing a beautiful little jumpsuit, I think, with the cherries on it. Is that cherries?
Yes, it's not a jumpsuit, actually. It's a long dress, but, you know.
Look how beautiful you are.
I really did an effort for you. Anyway, guys, I was happy to be here. Happy to wish you the good luck. And thank you for asking me.
And thank you, BBF and Olivia and Anne. Thank you, all of you. Big love. A huge big love. Greatest love.
You know, Andre.
That was amazing, Abba. This is amazing. This is your life. This is like, you remember the TV show? Before you were born? This is your life.
We're giving you your flowers, Andre, while you're alive.
Stop.
Yes.
This is your life. She's so beautiful, Diane. I'm so impressed. And everything came from her heart. She spoke beautifully about me and about our relationship. Thank you.
She responded to me within 2 minutes. I was shocked. She said anything for Andre.
Oh my goodness. And let me just tell you, that's a very important thing for her to be doing this on a Thursday night when she's got her friends there about the dinner. And she looks just the way she did when we were 27 in New York in the 70s, getting ready for Studio 54, going to parties. The same spirit, the same energy, the same vitality. She has an electric quality about her. This is why she's so successful with the wrap dress. Yes. The wrap dress has an iconic lifestyle.
Yes, it does.
The wrap dress is her signature. And she was on the cover of Newsweek when she was like 27 years old. Newsweek magazine.
Amazing.
And how beautiful she looks today.
Honestly, everyone needs a friend like that who will defend you, especially when you're not in the room. Because a lot has been said. So that was really special.
That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Well, Andre, I'm going to take a couple steps back.
Okay.
And some of this we talked about in our last chapter. We've got a lot of new friends here tonight.
Okay.
So I'm going to step back a little bit and talk a little bit about where it all began, Andre.
Yeah.
In your film, The Gospel According to Andre, I loved hearing Whoopi Goldberg say that you were a lot of things that you were never supposed to be. Growing up in the segregated South and then climbing to the very top of the fashion world, that is unlikely, yet you did it. You are someone who is larger than life, I think, metaphorically and in person. So I want to settle one score. How tall are you?
6'6", 6 feet, 6 inches tall.
There's a debate if he's 6'6" or 6'7". So guys, you heard it here. He is 6'6". We are settling that right now. So it all began, you were born in Washington, D.C., and then you were sent to Durham, North Carolina, yes, where you were raised by a wonderful woman, your yes, grandmother, and you did have your great-grandmother also.
Yes, she was there too.
That is so special. So today is July 9th.
Yes.
And I believe you mentioned to me that today is a very special day.
But, well, because of the number 9.
Yes.
My grandmother was born on April the 9th.
Oh, April.
1898, April the 9th. So I always associate the number 9 with the spirituality of my grandmother and the bona fortuna. Okay. So that's why I said we should do it on the 9th.
Understood. Okay, well, here we are.
Okay.
Andre, your grandmother in all of your books and in your film is a figure that looms huge in your life even today.
Yes.
Tell us what it was like to be raised by her.
My grandmother was like all the great-grandmothers. The way Diane would be a great-grandmother. She recently had a grandchild. Grandmothers are so special.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was special to me, and I'm sure there's so many people listening to us who have great grandmothers. My grandmother took over when my mother was not there for the moment. My mother and father were a couple in Washington, D.C. I was born on October 16, 1948, and my mother took me to Durham for a visit, and my grandmother decided to keep me because my mother and father were starting their career. So as a young child, I grew up in a household of two women, my grandmother and great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. My great-grandmother's name was China. She had retired, so she didn't do much in the house. My grandmother did everything. My grandmother was a domestic maid by day. She got up, by the way, at 6 o'clock, made breakfast, and got out of the house by 7:30. She was home by 3:30. My great-grandmother China was my nanny when I was young, and she died in 1961, and I remember her vividly. And these were very stern people, very strong, very rooted in faith, very disciplined. There was no nonsense about anything in our household. Yeah. We were modest, we were humble. We didn't have a lot of money, but we were not on welfare or we were not in subsidized housing. But everything about our house seemed, to me, I didn't know. I just thought everyone lived in a house like mine because everything seemed so warm and there was nothing luxurious. We did not have the finest furniture. We had beds, and the beds were the luxury. My grandmother and great-grandmother made the sheets on the beds the most impeccable things. The laundry was the most impeccable moment. I will never forget my great-grandmother, China, very old, would stand outside in the summer under our peach tree in the backyard, build a fire under a big black cast iron pot and boil the white sheets. Boil. She'd take a branch from the peach tree and stir the sheets. There'd be a galvanized tub with blue rinse. She'd pour the sheets into the galvanized tub, then another tub to rinse that. Wring them out by hand. This is a woman who's like in her 80s.
Wow.
Hang them on the line. Air-dried sheets. Air-dried sheets are a great luxury. Well, who would iron them? My grandmother would come home tired from working at Duke University as a maid in the men's dormitory on the West Campus, fix dinner, sometimes leftovers warmed up, and proceed to iron these sheets. Iron, all the sheets, all the pillowcases, everything, underwear, everything. And my grandmother taught me one thing. The chores were important. When I had to make my bed, I had to make it up perfectly. When I scrubbed the front porch, I had to wash that porch down to make it glisten like an ice skating rink. At Christmas and at Easter, my grandmother would make me get on my knees. She taught me how to polish the wood floors with Johnson's paste wax and a cloth. And I never said, oh, I don't want to do this. I did it because I thought this is what I had to do. So everything she did, I never questioned anything my grandmother said. I did whatever she said do. And church was our great social moment. Every week on Sunday, we got up, we went to Mount Sinai Baptist Church, our family church, where my great-grandmother's ancestors had founded the church. Oh, wow. It's still there right now. It's still there on Mount Sinai Baptist, on Mount Sinai Road in Durham, Orange County. And church was our social center. It was not only the structure of our lives, but everything that my grandmother taught me how to sit and how to act and how to speak. Of course, I went to school, and I learned a lot in school, in Lion Park Elementary School, Whittier Junior High School, Hillside High. But my grandmother was my greatest role model. And I just looked to her for strength and for discipline and for values. I was sexually, serially abused during my childhood. And when I was old enough to realize what had happened to me and this was wrong, I did not tell my grandmother. I thought, if I tell my grandmother, this will kill her. She'll die. She'll die of shame. I can't tell my pastor. I couldn't tell my uncles. I couldn't tell my father or my mother. I thought people would die of shame. I don't know what to do. We did not have therapists then in those days. Black people didn't have therapy. Black people did not have therapy, even if you were wealthy. Black people did not go to therapists. That was not available to us. That was not a part of our upbringing. So I just kept this bottle up. But I still survived because there was a part of me. It wasn't the whole. And my grandmother gave me great luxury. She could have had a sewing room. She took this extra room in our house and turned it into my special room. She bought a desk for me in a fine furniture store. She bought a sofa for me to sit up there and daydream and pin pictures from Vogue. And anything I did, my grandmother never questioned. Once my uncle came to our house for supper, and he says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "A fashion editor." And he says, "What is that?" And I said, "I don't know, but that's what I want to be." Because I started reading Vogue. And he says, "Well, show me what you're talking about." And I think I had an example of Vogue in the room. And I said, "Well, this is what I want to. I want to work in a magazine like this." And he says, "Well, men don't do that like where we're from." And my grandmother was in the kitchen and she screamed at him, "Leave him alone. He'll do whatever he wants."
That's beautiful to know that you had that kind of
She gave me confidence and faith. I had the confidence. When I was next to my grandmother, I felt like I was the most important young man in the world on the street, and I could do anything. Only standing next to my grandmother.
So, Andre, you felt you couldn't tell her of the tragic abuse that you suffered?
No, but I didn't know how. I was 9 years old. I didn't know how to articulate that as a child. How could I go to her and say, "Listen, this happened to me in the woodshed"? How? And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so horrible for her, and she's going to take me and send me to juvenile school, because I felt people were going to blame me, and I did not understand that I was a victim. Yet I'm a survivor.
You are.
So I just kept this bottle up. I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim of my childhood abuse. I'm a survivor.
You know, I had read your previous books and watched the film in which you never ever revealed that piece of your life until this newest memoir. And it was really difficult to read it. Yes. Somebody tweeted last night, and I thought it was interesting. Why do people who need therapy the most, why are they the most resistant? And all of a sudden I felt attacked. I felt seen by that. And I wanted to ask you that question, because you, till this day, have never sought any type of help or therapy for what you've been through. And that was quite tragic.
Well, I have gone to therapy once, maybe twice. I've gone maybe twice. And quite frankly, I thought, this is not for me. I went once. Lee Radziwill, who's a great friend of mine, I dedicated a book to her, sent me to her therapist. And I went once, but I never went back again. Well, first of all, I didn't want to go and pay $540 for 45 minutes. Yeah. That's not a part of the Black culture. For me, having evolved, I just didn't think, why do I have to pay this money? And once I went to a therapist, and it was in some fabulous hospital, and it was like $2,000. Yeah. The bill came to me, it was $2,000, and I kept thinking, why do I need this when I can go to church and be renewed every Sunday, when I can go back to my faith? And I have gotten this far. I got as far as I've gotten. I got to Paris. I met Diane von Furstenberg. I met Yves Saint Laurent, Betty Catrou, Anne Duong. I met all these extraordinary people. Anne Duong is a great artist. She's a painter. She started as a model. You know, James Baldwin was shining shoes. James Baldwin got the Légion d'honneur from François Mitterrand. So it's not as important the way you started, it's where you end up.
Absolutely.
And I ended up without therapy, although I probably need a lot of therapy.
I think we do, but I'm
going to leave that. But I'm not going to therapy. I mean, I've had some very down moments, and I've spoken to friends about it. But the times I went to therapy, it just wasn't for me to sit down and talk about.
I hear that. Okay. Well, Andre, I guess you then escaped into your books and into the pages of Vogue to escape, you know, some of that trauma that you were experiencing physically. So tell us about discovering Vogue magazine and what that opened up for you.
When I first discovered Vogue, I always went to the library. I was the only child. I had friends. Bruce Weaver lived on my street. He was my best friend. Barry Parker in high school. We're still friends today. But I had friends, and my best friends were always girls. But I was always by myself. I was pretty much a loner. And I loved to walk. I used to love to walk. When I was young, I would walk all over the city. So I was always walking downtown to the public library in Durham at the end of Main Street. And I discovered Vogue in the library, in the public library, not in the high school library. And I came across this big magazine. This was the 60s, around 63, and this was around the time of Jackie Kennedy. Everything opened up. Suddenly, I could see photographs of Jacqueline Kennedy, Onassis. I could see photographs of English people, Bohemia of England. Mm-hmm. I see photographs of great Truman Capote. Read about William Faulkner. I'd see these wonderful, wonderful people in Vogue, and the way the people looked and the way they lived in their houses. I had never seen anything like it before. Mm-hmm. I gravitated towards this. But the most important thing that struck me about Vogue I saw people that were beautiful like Naomi Sims and Pat Cleveland. And I was so struck by Pat Cleveland's photograph of Mr. Penn. I was so struck by Pat Cleveland's beauty and her elegance. She was as elegant as all the white girls in Vogue.
Yeah.
Naomi Sims, beautiful. Princess Elizabeth of Toro, a top Vogue model. And I wanted this world of electric mix. You could see Naomi Sims next to Lauren Hutton, next to Halston. It just said something to me. It was a literary, and yet it was a visual world. At the same time, I kept reading and reading. And I was just thinking yesterday, thank God I have the books. I have a room for all my books. I don't have a library. I have some shelves. Books on the floor, books in baskets, books are in shopping carts, books are all over. Well, Karl Lagerfeld had books too, all over the house, everywhere, just piled up. Bruce Weber has books. If you're a lover of books, it will help you to survive. Yeah. And so when I discovered Vogue, I discovered the world, and then I discovered Diana Vreeland because she was the editor-in-chief of Vogue.
Yes, yes.
Well, I didn't even think that I would ever meet Diana Vreeland. I got to Brown University jumping fast. I came to New York. Jane Kleinman was a student at RISD, a very good friend, and she had her father write a letter of introduction to the museum, to the Costume Institute. It was a letter of introduction to the technical head of the museum's Costume Institute, and that's how I got in the door to be a volunteer for Mrs. Vreeland. I never thought I'd meet Diana Vreeland, and there Mrs. Vreeland called me into her office. One day she walked past me. I stood behind a column to see her make her entrance. Her entrance was triumphant and dramatic. The way you see Diane playing with her hair, tossing her hair, you would see Diane tiptoeing on her toes like a ballerina in her beautiful Vivier boots, her Saint Laurent peacoat. And then 20 minutes after she went to her office, I was called into her office. They said, Mrs. Vreeland would like to see you. I was nervous, and I walked into her office. I stood. She said, what is your name? I said, Andre. I was tall and skinny like a bean. And she wrote on her yellow legal pad, she wrote so big, I could see it from standing up. Andre, accent aigu, / the helper. She didn't write Andre, the black helper. Andre, the helper. Then she stood up and she says, now, young man, you will be beside me throughout this entire exhibit. That was October 1974. For 6 weeks, every day, I went to the museum and I waited for Mrs. Vreeland to come out and approve some assignment I had to do for her show. At the end of her show, she said, Andre, don't go home for Christmas because it will happen for you. This was December 74. She says, it will happen in the new year. Don't go home because if you go to Durham, you will never come back to New York. And she said, I'm going to tell you a story now. And she started telling me the story. There's this very wealthy man, he died. He had no friends, he was alone, but he was rich. He left in a written statement to the undertakers, Frank E. Campbell, the funeral home on Madison Avenue. The first person that comes in to view my body, my remains, will receive my entire fortune. And I said, Mrs. Vreeland, what is the moral of this story to me? Am I supposed to be the millionaire? He's going to die and give me his fortune?
Right.
He said, no. The moral is you will not go home. You will just stand here and it will happen for you. I didn't go home. My grandmother called me on December 24th, 1974. I was sleeping on the floor of Robert Turner. Robert Turner was a very wealthy man from Louisiana that had gone to RISD. We were close friends. He also had worked at Vogue. The phone rang because I always let my grandmother know where I was, no matter where I was, what I was doing. Mm-hmm. It was 11 o'clock at night. Ray, I'm sending your father for you. He's here. My father, he was in North Carolina. He's right here next to me. He's driving up to the night to bring you home for Christmas. I said, you know, I told you Mrs. Vreeland said not to come because she's going to get me a job, going to help me get a job in the new year. You are coming home for Christmas. You have never been away from your home in your entire life. Come home. I said, no, grandmother, I cannot come home. I cannot come home this year. She says, come home. Your father is waiting. He's going to drive up through the night. He'll be there tomorrow. Give him the address where you are. He'll pick you up and bring you home. I said, no, no, no. And I kept thinking, my grandmother's insisting. I don't want to defy her. I don't want to disrespect her. But then I said, well, grandmother, why are you insisting I come home? I've told you, Mrs. Vreeland who is in my corner is going to help me get a job or something. She's going to help my future, jumpstart my future. Pause. I know you're sleeping with a white woman. Come on. It was the furthest thing from the reality. I said, oh, grandmother, Merry Christmas. I'll call you later. And then I hung up the phone and went to the kitchen, and Robert Turner only had Hershey's chocolate syrup. He'd gone home to Louisiana. I stepped on his floor. We were not lovers. I stepped on his floor. It's a beautiful apartment in Sutton Place. I slept on his parquet floor under a horse blanket that I bought at a vintage thrift shop around the corner. And I opened this Hershey syrup and took one of his antique silver spoons and just started eating the Hershey syrup.
Hershey syrup for Christmas
Hershey
dinner.
chocolate for Christmas Eve dinner. Amazing. I will never forget that. I will never forget that.
Andre, what would have happened if you had gone home to Durham?
If I had gone home, I would have become very normalized. I would have found a job in a high school or a private school or Durham Academy because of my credentials, and I would have been a churchgoer. I would have been going to church, probably at Mount Sinai Baptist Church. I would have bought a small, modest house. I've just been a Durham citizen, and I don't know what would have happened, but I just knew I couldn't go home. I'd gotten out of it because when I went to Brown, that was my first time being away from home. And I thought, I went to Brown on the train by myself with cardboard boxes and trunks.
Wow.
I had 2 big cardboard boxes full of bedding, pillows, and antique quilts that my aunts had made. My great aunt Luna had made for me. And I got those quilts after she passed away. And I was so proud to have those quilts. And I thought, oh, there's just, no one has quilts like that.
Do you still have them?
I left them at Brown because when I left Brown to come to Mrs. Freeland, I left the trunk there with all the quilts.
Oh.
Sometimes things have to be given up.
I understand.
So for me, my journey has been remarkable because I've always had faith in myself, although sometimes I've been very insecure, but I've never given up on myself.
Yes.
That's the strength, that I've never given up on the spiritual past is a storehouse.
Yes.
This is a quote from Dr. Butts, the pastor of my church. And I've never given up on my ancestral past. I can remember my great-grandmother, China. I can remember my grandmother.
Oh.
I can remember my great-grandmother killing chickens in the backyard.
Andre.
What? I can remember my grandmother chopping wood to make the... Who's that over there?
Who's that over there?
Oh!
Just me. Just wanting to say hi.
Marc!
Andre.
How are you?
Well, you know, I'm out of the trenches.
I can see that. I almost thought before you said hello that you could have been, man, Lynn Emanuel. You look like, a bit like Lynn Emanuel.
Lynn Emanuel.
Well, thank you.
From Hamilton, the man.
Yes, I know who Lin-Manuel is. But thank you. I came by to say hello.
Thank you.
Marc. Thank
As
you
a
for
big
joining
fan
us.
of yours and someone who's
I'm
got
a biggest
so much,
fan of yours.
and you know, someone who's learned so much from you and who adores you. I just wanted to come by and give you a big.
Oh God, thank you. And I love running. I follow you on Instagram. I see you've got a new pearl necklace.
Oh, this is not new. I've had this since Christmas.
Oh, well, I didn't see. I love you when you put a post your Instagrams. I love the Instagram of you with the gold shoes in bed reading the book.
Yeah, well, that was the one of you. That was in your book. I had to put on a good pair of shoes for that.
Yeah, a good pair of shoes.
I had to get those Pradas out of the closet for you.
That was a good pair of shoes. That was a brilliant pair of shoes.
You know, and now I'm so happy to see you. And
I'm happy to see you. Where are you? Where are you? You're in an office somewhere.
No, yes. So I'm in a little home office in Rye.
Okay.
We're not in our house yet because it won't be for another year till it's built.
Okay.
So we rented a house in Rye, close to the house.
I see.
And I've got my little wood paneled office. It's not very decorated yet, but yeah, I'm here.
And thank you. My book is in your store. They came up and sent me books to sign.
I'm
doing
sure.
well?
I'm sure.
I tell everyone to do Bookmark. I tell everyone to go to Bookmark.
Well, we're big fans. All of us.
I tell everyone. I love Bookmark.
So, Marc, how are you doing? How are you coping? You've been indoors for a while. Tell us.
Well, I lived for 4.5 months in the Mercer room, in a room at the Mercer Hotel. But I didn't get bored, and I learned so much in those 4.5 months. You know, I really think this has been an amazing experience so far, and I'm just really learning so much about myself and about the world, and it's just been really interesting, and I'm very excited when the time comes to see how I can use everything that I've learned to move forward, you know, and And that remains to be seen. I mean, I think there's a lot of grieving to do on my side, and for what I used to know and how I used to do it. But I'm looking forward to whatever the next story to tell is.
That's a really important point.
Marc, one of the greatest things that happened before the pandemic came on was your last show in February when you had that brilliant show choreographed by Miss Armitage. Oh, was this an epilogue?
Well, that's what it's funny looking back on it. I had no thought of that, but looking back on it, it really feels like I told my whole entire fashion life up until that point.
Yes.
And now whatever story I have to tell is to be written. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That was such an exploration of all my days in fashion in the past in New York City, as New York as I knew it.
It was beautiful. Right? Beautiful. Right?
So what happens now remains to be seen, but I'm ready and I'm anxious and I'm excited.
And we can't wait. We absolutely can't wait to see what comes from you. Really
thank you, Marc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Big love.
Question. Wait a minute. Don't run away. Got a question. Give me a minute. I want to know about you two and where you two met and started this long-lasting friendship.
Well, I think we can't remember. I remember when you were at Perialis. We first met when you were designing for Perialis.
Yeah, was it? I think even before. I think actually before I even got the job at Perialis, there was a moment with Izzy Blow and you when I first brought some clothes up to the Vogue office.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But
that sounds right. That sounds right.
And I also remember seeing you. I think it was at the Garage or the Sound Factory.
Yes.
Or I was at Perialis.
Yes.
And I knew of you before you ever knew of me. So
well, listen. Once you got on the map, you were big because your first show at the Plaza Hotel was amazing. And that was your first groundbreaking show. I can remember the black watch kilts and the white
yes, 1995, right.
That was an amazing show.
Yes.
Then you went on, and then you got to Vuitton. And then it's just a very sophisticated, complex thing. But one of the greatest things we want to tell you quickly, Abba, that to culminate our friendship, I almost missed the Marc Jacobs wedding last year. And I would have killed myself. I kept saying, I have to go. It's Marc. I have to go. At 3 in the afternoon, I said, I'm not going. I have to go. I said, get up, make an effort. To me, it was the equivalent of the Truman Capote black and white ball for the fashion world. And your wedding was like the fashion world's.
Andre, when I was reading your book and I got to that point where you talk about the wedding, especially in contrast to the Met and everything that was going on. And it was weird because not only with that last show, but with the wedding, there were so many markers that just felt like if only we knew then what we were going through.
Exactly.
Because I just thought like, wow, you hit this spot, and they were all telling of like things to come. You know what I mean? There are no coincidences. There are no accidents.
No accidents in the world. No accidents whatsoever. So great, that wedding. And I stayed until 3 in the morning. I usually just go.
I know.
It was beautiful. It was like an old home week. There was everyone. Colleen Surf, Grace Cardington, Joe McKenna.
All those different worlds that
came together. Sandra Bernard, and there was a big room. I never went into the big room with the pool.
Well, everybody came to you because everybody came to you and true.
Naomi and Kate Moss.
holding court. Everybody found their way over to you. I had so many people who read your book and they said to me, I met Andre Leon Talley that night of your wedding. Like, I say hello. And I was like, I know what that's like. I've been there. I understand it.
Big love, Martha. Big love.
It's wonderful.
Big love.
Wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for joining us.
I'm happy to. Anything for Andre, anything for you. I'm happy to be here.
Love you.
Good night, Marc. Thank you so much.
Alba, this is your life. I mean, God, you're a producer. I didn't know any of this was going to happen.
I was dying.
Let you get on with the rest of your surprises for tonight.
Marc, wait a minute. You have designed caftans for our lovely friend here.
Did I?
No.
You have designed for him.
No, he's given me. He's designed the Louis Vuitton muffler.
We did a ruffled blouse, I remember, for you, Andre.
Yes, yes, yes.
That was way back.
Way back.
Ruffled blouse.
But I love is that you sent me the beautiful sweatshirts for your wedding. I love that. I love those. I loved everything about your wedding. The napkins that said, the two birds on a branch, don't leave me. Oh, it's just so amazing.
No, don't float away.
Don't float away. In other words, don't leave me. Don't float away.
Well, whatever you thought it said.
But continue to give us wonderment, because the show of Carol Armitage, it was just breathtaking. And I didn't quite know what we were sitting there, but it was just, I stayed for both shows.
Yeah.
I stayed for both shows. I got Naomi to sit there for 2 shows. Can you imagine
I know.
Naomi sitting for 2 shows and Colleen Surf?
Yes.
So, Marc, you are important. I will never forget the beautiful shows, your beautiful hotel, your Bordello-esque show in Paris. You know, the rooms for the hotel rooms.
And do you remember one of your favorites? You wrote me the most magnificent note. Remember the show with all the brocades, the homage to Eve with that with Rhapsody in Blue?
Yes.
You were like, oh.
Oh, my God. It was fabulous. Fabulous. And then you also had the most great, the train. I was so proud of you when you brought the train into the
train. Was
the train. Oh, the train was built for his show.
Yeah.
A locomotive.
Yeah.
And Tawny and Grace and I sat there after the show and we were in tears. We were so proud of you. I was so proud to be an American in Paris and see an American create that magic and that beauty.
Wow. Thank you.
Marc, thank you so much. We're wishing you the best.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. Hats off to you.
Hats off. Andre, I've got to tell you that people really do adore you. And anybody that I have reached out to, unless they were off in a mountain in Tibet somewhere, and some people are, have responded immediately to just say how much you mean to them, and how much they genuinely love you.
This is why we are doing part 2, because you are amazing.
It's all for me. I just want to talk to you and all your friends and talk to you and talk to you.
It's better than any television show.
Yes. Actually, I have an idea, but we're going to take that offline.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But you know something? Before Marc jumped on, you know, you talked about leaving the segregated South in Durham and your grandmother and that whole life. And landing at an Ivy League school in Rhode Island, going to Brown University.
Yeah.
I want to take a couple steps back to that time in your life, arriving there with your boxes and your quilts onto this new place. And it was a form of freedom for you, your first time.
Liberating.
Yeah.
I got to Brown and I met friends. Well, I still have the greatest friend I have. It's Janice Mays.
And Janice is here with us tonight.
Oh, well, let me finish before we introduce. First, I got to Brown and I was liberated. And I met people that we had the same interests. And Janice was just wonderful. And hi, Janice. Are you there?
I'm here, Andre.
Dr. May's friend.
Hi.
This is
Dr.
one of
Mays,
Andre's.
Oh,
How are you?
Everyone's dressed
I
up
can't
for
see
me.
you. Wait. Okay.
Dr.
I love
May.
you so much, Andre.
Oh, I love you. I love the way you look. Oh, my God.
I love you. And Abba, thank you so much for organizing this.
I just thank you for being a part of his journey.
Absolutely fantastic.
So we've read all about you and heard so much about you, and now we get to see your face. So we've got a lot of friends in this room with us today, and I just want to mention that Dr. Janice Mays is one of Andre's oldest and closest, dearest friends. You both were students at Brown University together on full scholarship in French studies. And you have gone on and now are a professor at Syracuse University, teaching African-American literature. You're an author. You two have gone on to do
And Janice does not, Abba, Janice does not blow her own trumpet.
Let's blow it for her.
She was a very, very dear and close friend of our great, great author, Toni Morrison.
Amazing.
They were sisters.
And your body of work speaks for itself. I've been all down the rabbit hole researching you.
Oh, it's so nice of you to say this.
Impressed. I am impressed with you.
I'm impressed with
you. Andre actually posted something that was so touching on his Instagram that I found. And what he said is that he calls you my sister, my soulmate, my counsel, my back. woo, just reading that again, you know, it's really special. So I wanted to have you on so we can hear about life at Brown University first. I know you guys are still friends to this day.
Okay.
But what was it like when you met this tall beanpole
You know,
of a man?
what he said about me, I feel the same way about him. I just do. Well, I remember that we lived near Thayer Street, and we were living in the Graduate Center together. He had already been there a year. I moved in, and I saw this tall, elegant, beautiful man in a blue coat and hat. Now, graduate students wear jeans. You know, and at Brown, it's like, oh no. So I thought, I was from Fisk. I was coming up from the South, and I said, hey, brother, how you doing? And he said, I'm doing fine. And that's how we met, basically, the street. And from that first meeting, there was just something, you know how when you meet someone and it's love at first sight? Mm-hmm. Kind of like that.
Okay.
But our friendship grew over the years. Andre is probably the same. He carries his values with him. So the guy I met at Brown is the same person I know today, with the exception that he's had other experiences.
Yes.
He has those core values. He's trustworthy. You can tell him any secret, he won't tell it. I mean, if you're really his.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I don't think I'm in the book, am I, Andre? I've read the book. I've tried to see.
You are in the book. What
you're in the book. Yes, you're in the book. We've all read about you.
Yeah, but none of my secrets are there.
Oh,
none of your secrets.
Yeah, and he knows them because I used to talk to him a lot about my boyfriends and what I should do, and you know what I should wear, and he was a very good counsel. He was good counsel. But Andre has a rare quality of mind, and of the students I've met at Brown, he is really one who thinks in ways that nobody else thinks. And I think that comes across in all of his work now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember that we used to have what we called liquid lunches. You remember that?
Yeah.
Before the exposés, we would all have to do readings, and we would go out to lunch and talk about it. And he still does that. We still do that. We talk about what we're thinking and what we want to do. We talk about our pains, our heartaches, our love affairs, at least mine, the death in our family, the good times, the bad times. Andre is always there. And you mentioned earlier, Andre, about having a faith, a deep faith, right, that kept you anchored. And that is true. And do you remember the time you took us out to church?
Oh, yes.
You said that you girls are here studying physics and biology and French, but you need God.
Tell him, Andre.
No, we thought
we went out to church. And we went to the white church. Did we go to a white church?
No, honey, you at the Baptist church.
Oh, I found the Baptist church?
Down the hill. And we were a little late. He marched down the aisle, middle aisle, stood at the end of the aisle. Everybody would say amen. And we all marched into church. You remember that?
Yes.
That's really special.
But I remember we went to Paris. We went to Paris.
Okay, listen, Abba. Save our money and go to Paris. At the time, there were student rates.
Spring break.
And there were student rates. You could go to Paris rather inexpensively. Well, Andre and another friend of ours from Houston, Yvonne, and I went to Paris. We stayed in the same hotel room because we could not afford 3 hotel rooms. Right. And we had a great time. He told us that we needed not embarrass him. We needed to be very chic. And so we had to roll up our jeans. And we had to have our hair just right.
Afros, puffy afros.
We had puffy afros. And we were going through, we made a stop, I think, at Yale, right? Because Yvonne.
Yes.
And then we took the bus and went to Kennedy and went to Paris. And you would have thought that we had landed in paradise because we did think that. And we had such a great time. We had a marvelous time. And we went later to Paris, Andre. We were always meeting in Paris.
Yes, yes.
When we were graduate students, and Henri Majeski would have us meet him at the Café de Flore.
Yeah.
5 o'clock. And Andre would go to a telephone and call me, and they would announce, Mademoiselle Mays, telephone. And so that was a big deal because you would get up and walk through the cafe. And then the next day, I would go to a telephone and call Andre, and they would say, Monsieur Talley. So we just played the whole game, and we still
play the game. We still play the game.
We're still playing the game.
Still play the game. You remember that time at the Ritz? You said, I'm going to take you to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Andre, what are we having for lunch? Coup d'été? You said, listen, darling, we're having a vegetable plate.
Oh, I love it.
But we talk every day. We talk this whole pandemic and the murders and all, I think has upset him to the core and me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to work through that. I would just say, Andre, I want you to know that I love you so much, and I think that
I love you too.
You have created history.
Thank you.
You are the person who has created a space that no one else can fill. So when the books are written, when we look back on this period in 100 years, your name is going to be there. And, everyone talked about how there's this new interest at the Orsay Museum on the ways that African art and African images are inside Black culture. But you did that 30 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
You did that. You looked at Flaubert and Baudelaire.
Yes.
African in that work. Now that's what you call brilliance.
Yes.
Intellectual, creative work. And you carried it. I remember the day you left for New York, I cried. And I was like, Andre, wait a minute. Aren't you going to stay? You got to stay with us. And you let us know that you had to go on to bigger and better things.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was a big decision for me to leave Brown, but
honey, we all cried. I just thought, oh no, what am I going to do?
Oh, well, we knew this was a big moment. This is a big moment.
Yes.
And look where he went.
And look where he went.
And look what happened.
Yes, it was the best decision.
Yeah.
And yes. I think that Andre's book, it was very touching because it occurred to me that people in that fashion world, that world he was occupying, that he was in, had no idea who he was in terms of his brilliance. And the only reason that a lot of those, that Karl Lagerfeld and even Saint Laurent, the only Prada, that they're
Hubert de Givenchy,
that they're and the guy, the Italians as well, that they're
all of them. Yes.
Because Andre said you should buy this. Mm-hmm. He was very instrumental in how fashion would circulate in the world. If he said it was okay, then it would circulate. Then you could pay $10,000 for it. He said it wasn't okay, it didn't work, it did not circulate. So that's power. That's a kind of Black power, and I'm so proud of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Mays.
Thank you. Just call me Janice.
I can't help it. I've read your bio, and I will not call you Janice. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Mays.
You look marvelous. You look marvelous.
Thank you, darling. I feel good.
You look great. I'm so happy to see you. My God. We have to call.
Don't leave us. We have some other things down the line.
Okay, don't leave us. Stay in.
I want to bring you back in, so don't go anywhere, okay?
Okay, I will see you there.
Thank you, Dr. Mays. We'll be back in a moment to talk to you.